Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In today's video, we're going to be discussing Harry Potter's mother, Lily, and Harry's godfather, Sirius Black. More specifically, we're going to be taking a look at a secret letter that Lily wrote to Sirius in the year 1981, shortly after Harry Potter was born. Harry Potter was of course born to parents James Potter and Lily Evans. The story of their love was an interesting one, as when they first met, Lily wasn't too impressed by James. Lily had grown up in the town of Cokeworth and spent much of her youth with her childhood companion Severus Snape, who grew up in nearby Spinner's End. When Lily and Snape began attending Hogwarts, James Potter was horrible to Snape, which negatively skewed Lily's perception of James. However, when Snape eventually began to go down a very dark and troubled path, a path involving dark magic and terrible people, things changed. One day, while Snape was being bullied by James, Lily intervened. The embarrassed Snape then lashed out at Lily, calling her a filthy mudblood. This effectively ended their relationship. While James was at school, he was part of a quartet of boys that called themselves the Marauders. The boys began their studies in 1971, the same year as Severus Snape, and they all had one thing in common: they were all Gryffindors. Before the sorting ceremony even happened, the boys hit it off, and when they were eventually sorted into the same house, they knew that they were destined to be friends. Though the boys got on with many of their other classmates, this particular group of 4 boys had a truly special bond. This group was comprised of James Potter, Remus Lupin, Peter Pettigrew, and the subject of this video, Sirius Black. Sirius was a great friend to the Potters, so much so that he was chosen to be the godfather of Harry Potter. Sirius hailed from the powerful wizarding family, the Blacks, and while many of his family members placed an unreasonable amount of value on blood purity, Sirius did not share this same belief. Many of the members of the Black family went down a very dark path, but Sirius was able to choose his own path. After graduating, Sirius, along with the other Marauders, went on to join the Order of the Phoenix. The purpose of the Order was to oppose Lord Voldemort and the Death Eaters. However, it turned out that not all members of the Order were good, as Sirius's old friend Peter Pettigrew would go on to frame Sirius for a heinous crime. In 1981, just one day after the Potters were murdered, Peter Pettigrew murdered 12 muggles using a dark and powerful blasting curse. Some way, somehow, Sirius Black was blamed and was promptly sent to Azkaban. After being banished to Azkaban, seemingly the whole world turned on Sirius, and he was left there to rot for an astonishing 12 years. That was the 1st of November, 1981. However, just a few months before everything exploded, Sirius Black received a letter from none other than Lily Potter. Dear Padfoot, thank you for Harry's birthday present. It was his favourite by far. 1 year old and already zooming along on a toy broomstick. He looks so pleased with himself. I'm enclosing a picture so you can see. You know, it only rises about 2 feet off the ground, but he nearly killed the cat, and he smashed a horrible vase Petunia sent me for Christmas. No complaints there. Of course, James thought it was funny. Says he's going to be a great Quidditch player, but we've had to pack away all the ornaments, and to make sure we don't take our eyes off him when he gets going. We had a very quiet birthday tea, just us and old Batilda, who has always been sweet to us, and who dotes on Harry. We were so sorry you couldn't come, but the Order's got to come first, and Harry's not old enough to know it's his birthday anyway. James is getting a bit frustrated shut up here. He tries not to show it, but I can tell. Also, Dumbledore's still got his invisibility cloak, so no chance of little excursions. If you could visit, it would cheer him up so much. Wormy was here last weekend. I thought he seemed down, but that was probably the news about the McKinnons. I cried all evening when I heard. Batilda drops in most days. She's a fascinating old thing with the most amazing stories about Dumbledore. I'm not sure he'd be pleased if he knew. I don't know how much to believe, actually, because it seems incredible that Dumbledore could ever have been friends with Gellert Grindelwald. I think a mind's going, personally. This letter is a little bit ominous, because of course we know now that just a few short months later, the Potter family would be destroyed forever. It's written from the perspective of Lily Potter, sometime in early August 1981, and it's clear that her, Harry and James are in hiding. In 1980, Sybil Trelawney, the now Hogwarts divination professor, was interviewing for her posting at Hogwarts. She had a bad track record. Dumbledore gave her a chance because she was the great-granddaughter of famous seer Cassandra Trelawney. During her interview, a disappointed and unimpressed Dumbledore began to lose interest, when suddenly Sybil entered a trance. In her trance, Sybil spoke of the famous prophecy that we all know, explaining that Voldemort would be defeated. It spoke of a boy that would be born at the end of July, that possessed the power to defeat the Dark Lord himself. What Dumbledore and Sybil did not know, however, was that Snape, then a Death Eater, was eavesdropping at the door. This meant that the news would certainly be passed on to Voldemort. The entire prophecy is as follows. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies. And that's why the Potters were in hiding, entirely aware of the prophecy and the fact that their son Harry had been born as the 7th month dies. They didn't really have much choice but to go into hiding. However, they didn't just hide. They put in place all sorts of preventative measures to ensure they wouldn't be found. Most importantly, the Fidelius charm. Villiers Flitwick has a great description of how it works. An immensely complex spell involving the magical concealment of a secret inside a single living soul. The information is hidden inside the chosen person, or secret keeper, and is henceforth impossible to find, unless, of course, the secret keeper chooses to divulge it. As long as the secret keeper refused to speak, you-know-who could search the village where Lily and James were staying for years and never find them, not even if he had his nose pressed against their sitting room window. The secret keeper that was chosen in this instance was in fact Peter Pettigrew, aka Wormtail, and what I found particularly ominous in the letter was Lily mentioning that Pettigrew had recently been to visit. Wormy was here last weekend. I thought he seemed down, but that was probably the news about the McKinnons. Of course, we know now that it was probably absolutely nothing to do with the McKinnons. Wormtail was down because he was ashamed of the atrocity that he was about to commit. The truth is, Peter Pettigrew was only made secret keeper for the Potter family because everyone felt that the likely choice, Sirius Black, would be targeted. Though Pettigrew was one of the Marauders, he was always just a little bit of an outcast. Lily and James only made you secret keeper because I suggested it. I thought it was the perfect plan. Voldemort would be sure to come after me. Would never dream they'd use a weak, talentless thing like you. It must have been the finest moment of your miserable life, telling Voldemort you could hand him the Potters. Peter Pettigrew eventually revealed his true colours, and in one infamous act of cowardice and disloyalty, revealed the location of the Potter cottage to Voldemort, not even a week after he was made secret keeper. To add insult to injury, he then murdered 12 muggles and framed Sirius. Ouch. Additionally, the letter mentions a little bit about none other than Albus Dumbledore's past. Dumbledore is a bit of an enigmatic figure in Harry Potter, a wise old powerful man that has accomplished many a feat in his lifetime. However, it appears that Bathilda Bagshot revealed a side of Dumbledore to the Potters that people were previously unaware of. This is a fun little sneak peek into another side of Dumbledore, a side that paints him in a bit of a different light than we're used to. The friend of Gellert Grindelwald? Couldn't be. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Do you guys remember this letter? Let me know in the comment section below. Until next time, it is the unknown we fear when we look upon death and darkness, nothing more.